When I was told that I needed to take a closer look at my new neighbors, I simply did not understand why I had to do this. Now I understand the reason. And I'm going to tell you now. My name is Jeremy, and I had a wonderful wife who was the universe to me. I really loved her madly, and I will never love anyone else. She hurt me, but I hurt her even more. Enjoy watching. Lori and I met at her best friend's aunt's wedding, where fate played a role. Later, we crossed paths at a fundraiser, chatted, and I made sure to get her contact details. Our late-night texting and dinner dates gradually evolved into a strong relationship. After 2 years of dating, I proposed, and she accepted. We got married soon after college graduation, starting our lives in Washington. We both pursued our careers. I in the sales department of my current job, often dealing with long work hours, and Lori as an entrepreneur. Despite our hectic schedules, we supported each other and went on regular dates, having decided to postpone having kids until we could dedicate ample time to them. Recently, things took a dark turn. My job's demanding nature sometimes led to guilt and exhaustion, affecting the balance between career and personal life. Lori, too, began acting strangely, staying out late, a stark contrast to her usual routine of waiting for me to return home. Concerned, I questioned her, but initially, I chose to give her the benefit of the doubt. 2 weeks passed, and Lori's odd behavior escalated. Unable to ignore it any longer, I decided to confront her about what was going on. I discovered that she had been cheating on me with our new neighbor, Martin, who had recently moved into our neighborhood. The betrayal felt like a punch to the gut. I was devastated to see someone I loved and cherished throw away our 5-year history for a fleeting moment of pleasure. It's a situation I still find hard to believe. In my initial response, I acted normal, showing no signs of awareness. However, I couldn't bear to let the deception continue. I decided to reveal the truth to Lori, making her aware of the extent of my knowledge. It was a painful confrontation, watching her struggle to understand how much I knew. I couldn't shake off the nagging feeling about why Lori was consistently arriving home late. Every time I brought it up, she brushed it off as if it were nothing, assuring me that I was overreacting and had nothing to worry about. Initially, I believed her, giving her the benefit of the doubt because, well, I practically adored her. Call it what you want, being a simp or a submissive man in the marriage, but I genuinely cared and worshipped her. My trust in her was unwavering, to the point where I didn't realize she was cheating on me. It's embarrassing to admit how much I trusted her, especially considering that our neighbor turned out to be her affair partner, living just a few steps away from our house. I guess my calm demeanor made her believe she could get away with it. The revelation hit me like a ton of bricks 2 weeks ago. I felt the need to uncover the truth, so I consulted friends who suggested hiring a private investigator. Initially hesitant about spying on my wife, I eventually realized it was necessary to uncover the reality behind my back. I knew confronting her directly wouldn't lead to the truth because cheaters rarely admit their faults. Given the nature of my job and the need for secrecy, I hired a private investigator to discreetly observe Lori's activities. He became my gatekeeper, and I managed to keep my intentions hidden from Lori. She was initially puzzled about the sudden need for a gatekeeper, but I convinced her it was due to difficulties opening the gate by myself after work. The private investigator executed the plan seamlessly, making it appear like a routine gatekeeping job. With my busy work schedule, I had little time to be home for updates. Finally, during a weekend, the private investigator shared some feedback. He indicated that my wife had been careful in her actions, making it challenging to gather concrete evidence. However, after a few more days, the investigator delivered substantial proof. Lori's late-night exits weren't just innocent outings. She was dressing up to see the new neighbor, Martin. It hit me hard to learn that she was comfortable cheating on me with someone who had just moved into the neighborhood 4 months ago. The evidence, including photographs and videos, confirmed the betrayal. All of them were provided to me by a detective. There were no faces visible. It was dark, but I believed that it was really my wife and neighbor. It wasn't an easy decision, but I couldn't keep quiet. Lori's betrayal strengthened my resolve, and after careful consideration, I came up with a plan. I didn't want to be silent and only take revenge. That wouldn't be enough. It would be extremely stupid of me not to admit the truth about my wife's infidelity. I wanted her to be aware that I am fully aware of her actions. I looked forward to seeing her fear and the difficulty she would go through to make sense of the situation. My initial decision was to make subtle hints that I knew about her cheating, intending to put her in a state of uncertainty. I had a detailed plan to expose her, and I was looking forward to the moment when she fell right into the trap I set. The most dangerous individuals are often seemingly gentle people who are forced to show ruthlessness because of the mistreatment they have been subjected to. It's been 2 weeks since my wife has been actively monitored, and to be honest, living in the same house with the woman I once called my wife was extremely difficult. She shamelessly continues her affair, and my private investigator continues to send me disturbing news. A few days ago, armed with almost 10 incriminating photos, I burst into the living room where Lori was sitting. My anger increased when I told her about the new evidence. Before I could express my disappointment, she audaciously asked me for money. Yes, you read it right. She had the audacity to demand money despite her actions. In rage, I pushed her to the ground and threw the damned photos at her. Her eyes widened in surprise, a look that I found both infuriating and revealing. This destroyed my last hope that the photos were fake. I just couldn't hold back anymore. It was unbearable. What would they do if, God forbid, they were in my place? A heated argument ensued, during which Lori showed no remorse for her actions. Instead, she tried to blame me by presenting herself as a victim. She tried to provoke me into physical violence by setting a trap to involve me in domestic violence. I wisely kept my hands behind my back and refused to give in. I made it clear that our relationship was over, and her attempts to manipulate me only fueled my resolve. It was very painful for me to realize that she was trying to provoke me so that I would do illegal actions in order to then hold me accountable. Of course, I may be wrong, and this is a common defensive reaction, but I really think that these manipulations were for my own benefit. What do you think? Just what is the problem with admitting, given that there is all the evidence? After leaving the house that day, I returned the next day and found Lori asking for money for groceries. She thought I would forget everything, but I ignored her and continued to throw all her things out of the closet. When she returned, she witnessed the effects of her burned clothes. In a fit of rage, she threatened to report me to the police if I didn't buy back her clothes. Ignoring her, I realized the extent of her despair and lack of respect. When she resorted to physical aggression, I had to push her away, amazed by the revelation of the woman I had lived with for many years. Finally, telling her that I burned all her things brought her to the brink with tears and threats. Her behavior only reinforced my decision to break out of this toxic relationship. Completely stunned, she began to scream dramatically. I acted calmly, determined to carry out my plan. I grabbed her hands tightly and dragged her out of our gate right into the heart of the neighborhood. This is an area where gossip is rife, and people are always looking forward to rumors or some unfolding drama. I deliberately chose this place, knowing that it would attract attention. Lori's screams echoed loudly, attracting a curious crowd. I wasn't sure if she was being overly dramatic or if my grip on her arms was really that tight. I won't deny that I intentionally left bruises on her arms when I pulled her out. As Lori's screams intensified, the audience began to assume the worst, that I had abused her. I didn't pay attention to their assumptions. All I cared about was executing my plan. Among the audience was Martin, Lori's lover. I foresaw his stupid involvement, which is why I organized this scene in the first place. Without explaining anything, I announced to the neighbors that Lori was no longer my wife and would no longer live with me. Even before I could finish my words, Lori next to me was visibly shaken. She despised public embarrassment, and I knew her enormous ego would be hurt. I knew her weak spot. In front of everyone, I told them that Martin and my wife were having an affair, saying that from now on, They should live together. I dragged Lori over to where Martin was standing and handed her to him. He was clearly shocked and scared when he turned to face me. I couldn't contain my anger. I hit him. What infuriated me more was the fact that he was a new neighbor, barely old enough to be my younger brother. The neighbors tried to intervene, but I took care to beat him severely. I broke his leg, and he limped away, a consequence of his betrayal. In the end, the neighbors managed to step in and restrain me. I stormed back into the house, trashing all the wedding photos in my room. I needed to get rid of the painful reminders. Just a couple of hours later, I decided to take a break and rest. However, I soon heard a noise outside my gate. A private investigator informed me that Lori and her parents were at the door, pleading on her behalf. I was shocked by their arrogance and refused to go to them. This incident made me realize how condescending and stupid I had been in the past. Later that day, I went outside. Indifferent to the commotion of the neighbors about my previous actions, my only goal was to print out photos of Lori and Martin, planning to hang them around the neighborhood and in front of my gate. After printing out the photos, I returned home, intending to hire someone to hang them at night. To my surprise, the next morning I heard people knocking on my gate. Confused, I went outside to check but found my neighbor and a tearful Lori waiting for me. When I inquired about their presence at my gate, they displayed a printed picture, evidence that the private investigator I had hired had done his job. Lori dropped to her knees, pleading with me to stop trying to ruin her life. Some neighbors even joined in, urging me to reconsider. Holding those incriminating pictures, people asked if I felt embarrassed. It baffled me. Why should I be the one feeling shame when I was the one betrayed? I explained that the pictures were provocative, capturing her in compromising situations. I denied being the one who released them. After closing my gate, I had a hearty breakfast and prepared for work. The plan for the day was to meet with my lawyer, who had already begun drafting the divorce papers. I was determined to end things with Lori swiftly, and I needed a lawyer who could ensure minimal alimony expenses. At work, I had to turn off my phone due to incessant calls from Lori and her parents. I refused to answer any of their calls. I wasn't about to let myself be manipulated as I had in the past. Reflecting on how I'd allowed her family to take control of our wedding, I realized the extent of my foolishness. Lori's betrayal made me deeply ashamed of the doormat I had become. Before the infidelity revelation, our lives seemed normal, like any other couple sharing personal information. Knowing her bank PIN, a result of our close relationship, I seized the opportunity. Lori, being an entrepreneur, had savings and a customer fund account. In my quest to gather her belongings, I stumbled upon one of her ATM cards. Instead of destroying it, I withdrew everything, her savings, her customers' money, everything. On the day I sent her packing, I destroyed her phone, ensuring she remained unaware of the missing funds. Unbeknownst to her, she'd been using her parents' phone to reach out. As she continued attempting to contact me, the realization of the missing money would hit her too late. I planned to use part of that money for the divorce case, anticipating a challenging legal battle. This was just the beginning, and Lori had no inkling of the storm that lay ahead. Maybe it was time for me to embrace a different side, to let out the beast that had been hidden beneath my calm demeanor for too long. In the midst of the divorce chaos, my mind has been consumed by the need for revenge against all the constant disrespect I've endured from her. By the time I'm done with my plan, she'll regret using me as her doormat. These past weeks have been a whirlwind, and while I'm still figuring out the details, I promise to share the execution with you all soon. But it's time to shift my focus back to work. Money doesn't make itself, and I need to ensure a stable income. As I pondered my next move during work breaks, it struck me that I needed to confront Martin, not just for Lori's sake, but for my own closure. Surprisingly, he lived close to our house, unbeknownst to me. Despite being aware of a new neighbor, I never imagined it was the man involved with my wife. The age difference fueled my anger. He had to be at least 5 years younger than me. It left me wondering what women really want at this point. Lori's betrayal, especially with a younger man, fueled my resentment. Why throw away our marriage for a fleeting moment of pleasure? This led me to question why some find it difficult to ask for a divorce when tired of a partner. If she had expressed her desire to end our marriage, I would have respected her decision without hesitation. Instead, she chose to cheat, an act I deem cowardly and shameful. Discovering that Martin worked at a tech company, I decided to pay him a visit. The close proximity of our houses, coupled with the fact that he was a young professional, fueled my determination. Upon reaching his workplace, I insisted on seeing him, and it took some time before I was granted an audience. When I finally confronted Martin, he looked petrified, as if expecting retribution for his actions. It's disheartening that Lori chose to cheat on me with someone who seems so intimidated. However, I can't ignore that I used to be her doormat. Perhaps she has a type, men she can control. Despite my intimidating appearance, it didn't deter her from betraying me. I expressed my offense at being cheated on with someone who appeared to be a scared cat. The details of what happened during my confrontation with Martin are intense. I'm now determined to make sure Lori faces the consequences of her actions. Martin's display of fear was quite amusing. His cast and bandages hinted at the aftermath of our last encounter. It seems the beating I gave him really left an impression. It accomplished exactly what it was intended to do, and I couldn't help but chuckle. There was even a noticeable limp in his step. Before I could utter a word, Martin began apologizing profusely. "Listen, man, I'm sorry for what happened. I messed up. I didn't know she was your wife. She told me both of you were cousins, and she was just staying at your house until she was back on her feet," he explained, desperately trying to justify himself. Skeptical at first, I didn't want to believe him. But he presented evidence. He had voice recordings of Lori continuously referring to me as her cousin. It seemed Lori had lied to him, and he fell for it. I couldn't help but think he was just as foolish as she was. If he had been genuinely curious, he could have discovered the truth. However, his interest in her blinded him to the obvious. Ignorance is never an excuse, but I decided not to inflict more harm on Martin. I had already given him a fair share of beatings, and I wasn't about to waste my time on Lori's sloppy seconds. I refused to give her the satisfaction of thinking she got under my skin by cheating on me. Although she did, I didn't want her to know that just yet. I inquired if Lori was still at Martin's place, and to my relief, he claimed he had chased her out and ended their relationship. It was surprising because that was precisely what I intended to achieve by confronting him. Martin had taken matters into his own hands, breaking up with Lori without my intervention. I didn't need to lift a finger. All my wishes had come true. Martin continued to apologize, but I had no business with him anymore. I felt good knowing that he and Lori were no longer together. To ensure the truth, I asked my private investigator to verify Martin's claims. Within 2 days, he confirmed that Lori had indeed moved out, and they had broken up 2 weeks prior to my discovery. My satisfaction increased, but Lori wasn't done with her antics. 2 weeks after the confrontation, she ambushed me at my workplace, falling to her knees and bursting into tears. She even threatened to strip herself naked if I didn't forgive her. My colleagues were stunned as the drama unfolded before their eyes. I stood my ground, unaffected by her emotional manipulation, telling her she could do as she pleased. Upon returning home that day, my lawyer informed me that the divorce papers were ready. I signed them and sent them to Lori's house. Despite the passage of 2 weeks, she hadn't signed them. Instead, she showed up at my house, demanding to speak with me. She claimed all her money was gone after going to the bank, and she accused me of taking it. I denied any involvement and asked her to leave. Lori insisted she wouldn't sign the divorce papers unless I returned the money. Unperturbed, I agreed as I had no plans to get married anytime soon. I welcomed the legal drama if that's what she wanted. My revenge was complete, and I had no issues with her prolonging the divorce proceedings while facing legal troubles and financial woes. I've moved on, even found a girlfriend for some lighthearted fun. It was tough, but I had a blast.